Welcome. Hi, thank you so much for coming. My name is Cynthia Lawson Jaramillo. I'm the director of the Deed Research Lab at Parsons School of Design. For more than 15 years, we've been researching the artisan sector, matters of craft through a critical lens, and always with a focus and primary interest around inclusion and justice, fairness with artisans and communities to which they belong. We gather the first Wednesday of every month, sometimes take some breaks. And today is an open session, which means that I will facilitate a conversation with your input. And the way we kick these off is I will go around and ask you if you brought a thing to today's space. And the thing might be something you want to share to get feedback on. It might be a particular question. It might be a resource that you're looking for. And it might also just be active listening ears. And so you can also just share that that's the thing that you've brought. So I will start, I'll go clockwise on my screen. So I'll start with Jackie. Did you bring a thing to share? So in this round, keep it brief, no more than a minute. And then once we're in conversation, I'll call back on you. So Jackie, did you bring a thing to share?
Thank you. Yes, I did. A few months ago when I was in the group, I was sharing about the potential for a training program to coach designers in creating handwoven fabrics that I could then partner with the weavers in Bangladesh I work with. And yeah, I just wanted to bring an update about how it's going because I did launch it and we're just about to start the third of the 4 betas. So yeah, that's what I'd like to bring today.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jackie. We'll look forward to that update. Gabriella, what is your thing? Do you have a particular question that you're exploring right now?
Yeah, so in the project that I'm doing, I'm looking to explore how strategic design or just strategy and the fair trade, how they can be incorporated together. So I'm just really looking to find out how all of you incorporate some of these design strategies within your work and how fair trade can play a role in it as a whole.
Wonderful. That's a huge one. But yeah, that's great. Welcome. Robert, do you have a thing for today?
Well, hi everyone. So I've been working on this project called the Creative Journey card deck. It involves 4 themes but I've been inspired more recently by making objects again. So I'm not sure what that will be, but I see it as like a continuum of previous work, just changing a little different, sort of mixing sculpture with objects that could be like room dividers or picture frames, things like that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Robert. Pavitra, do you have a thing? I don't know if you can hear me, Pavitra, but we can't hear you. So perhaps I'll jump to Jim and then we can come back.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I've gone ahead. Actually, Cynthia, I've been doing a lot of work. My main work is doing design and training people for livelihood. This is my 50th year in doing this. And it's been great. It's been a great success because most of my weavers can buy me out. Okay. And I also run a little museum called the Museum of Living Textiles, which celebrates everybody's grandmother's textiles and not of for king and royalty of the 16th or 17th century. Recently, my work has been I have been working with pastoral community, creating design interventions and using a lot of recycled and waste yarns, much before I realized the term was sustainability. So there is a lot of what I do. And I do a lot of revival of everybody's grandmother's sari, and I give the design free to the weavers so that they thrive. That's what's been happening in 50 years work. Yeah.
Great.
Thank
And
you.
where are you based, Pavitra?
I'm based in Bangalore, but I've done training for weavers right across the country, mostly in the south. I've worked in Rajasthan and things. I reinterpreted design that is 100-year-old piece, but I reinterpreted to look at what is the weaver's capacity to take it forward to be a commercial success. So normally what we do is we buy at least, and we keep them for 1 year with us, by which time they have learned all the designing thing from me. And then I give my design. It's already test marketed and they have great growth. In fact, today I'm training the second and third generation weavers. And I feel, I'm part of their family. Still have a small store which I've never advertised. But even my museum has got a lot of traction because I have weavers that come in and it's free for them. They sit, they learn, they experiment. We've got looms. So actually my life has been in textiles.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for sharing. We'll come back to you in a few minutes. Jim,
Thank
did you
you.
bring a thing today to La Hora?
Well, I didn't, but I can talk for briefly. So, one thing I come to realize since I left Parsons and working full time in the studio is that, I generate a lot of waste. I mean, I make big pieces of wood into little pieces of wood, and I've been trying to find ways to do something with everything. It's just kind of one of those like things like in my head about why do I have to have so much stuff going out waste wise. So I've been giving stuff to students. One of my old students came by last week, as a matter of fact, and I gave her a big bag of wood, because she's an architecture student now, to make models. And I compost all my sawdust and my scraps. And then I make little sculptures, I mean, literally like 3 or 4 in my palm of my hand, because I'm always trying to find a way not to throw anything away. Just kind of those little quirky things in my head, And that's what I've been doing, just making sculptures and trying to use everything I bring into the shop.
Wonderful. Maybe we can do a round of sharing of ideas that we can send your way. Thanks, Jim, so much for joining. Hi, Judy. Nice to see you. Thank you for being here today.
Hi. Yeah, this is my first actual opportunity to meet with the group. I've known about it for a while. I didn't bring anything. I just suddenly saw the message yesterday, but I have been working also with artisans in India for 50 years. And over the last little over 20, I started a design school for artisans. My focus is recognition for the creative capacity of artisans, traditional artisans, and returning agency to them. And I have a book coming out in the fall at the end of October titled Artisans by Design, and it's about the journey of developing a program in design education for artisans, told through artisans' stories.
Wonderful. We look forward to celebrating your book here at Parsons. I would love to host an event.
Yeah, thank you.
That would be great. Tatiana, hi. How are you? Did you bring a thing today? Oh, you're muted.
Hi. Hi. I'm trying to think if I brought a thing today because I was trying to go through the email to try to remind myself because the thing is a question, right?
Mm-hmm. It can be a
Yes.
question or something you want to show or share.
So I am starting on a new installation that I'm working, and a few years back I did a piece in which I collaborated, and I call it a collaboration, and I think that here's where I kind of keep always questioning myself. I work with the collective of women that do handmade paper in Colombia, and it was the first time that I was working in this way with a group of people. I normally the lines between fabrication and who's fabricating and me are very kind of clear, because I'm going to places like printing places like Dugal or places that are kind of not a lot of fun to work with. And so in 2022, I went in and worked over the period of a month and a half with one woman, but it's a collective of women. So I was kind of working with them, but specifically I was working with one woman, and build most of the assets for an installation that I was doing. And this, once I finished the installation, I credited all the women because in this collective, you know, they all have first of all, it's a beautiful place that I recommend everyone to go and experience it, because I had never experienced this kind of flow and being in a place where people are actually happy to work in the place. Like really happy and enjoy each other. You know, so things like starting to work at 7 a.m., but then at 9 a.m., taking a break to have coffee and have a small meal, and then work again. And then at 1 stop to have a 2-hour break to go and rest and have lunch, and then come back at 3 and keep working. But they rotate their tasks. So for example, to make the paper, they're rotating. So they're always, somebody's taking on one task. So it's not like somebody just goes in and chops the paper or deals with that. So they all learn all the different ways of making the paper and they are always sitting kind of in a circle working, and they're rotating. And it was, for me, it was a beautiful experience to be just working with women and being in this kind of dynamic. So, you know, when I finished my piece, I credited all the women. I actually wanted Yadira to come, who was a woman that I worked directly, to come to the opening. But unfortunately, I kind of came to that idea a little later than when I started the process. And I say unfortunate because the women that she didn't have a passport and the women that could help, like make this work, it was too late to work all the things that needed to be worked for her to come and be in the opening and be participant for that. Which is something that I've been, as an artist, I've been kind of like questioning myself. In the moment that you enter this kind of work with somebody, even though I kind of brought in the idea, I was very clear what I wanted to do. There was in the process of making the leaves, we were both learning, experimenting, but also she was bringing all of her knowledge into the process of making. And I was learning from her, and I was bringing on other modes of experimenting or just kind of challenging the process.
I'm going to pause you there just because this is meant to be a quick round, but we'll come back because there's some interesting questions there around collaboration and.
Yes. So yeah, that was it. So, I'm so sorry.
No, it's great. It's great. There's a lot there. Andrea, did you bring a thing today? Could be a question, or maybe you're just here to listen and learn, or something to share.
Hi. Yes, I didn't bring anything because I thought it would be like the last one, that it was like someone presented their work, but I love being here and reconnecting with Parsons and New York, being here in Colombia. So, and Tatiana, I just looked up your work. It's amazing. Beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I'm in Bogota.
Drop links in the chat so everyone can see them.
Yes.
Well, welcome, Andrea. Thank you for coming.
Happy to be here.
Great. Happy to have you. Susan, did you bring a thing, a particular question or
Hi,
wrestling with right now? Hi.
Actually, I didn't. I just I wanted to listen and learn. And I have a background. I had a brand that worked with artisans for 15 years. And now I do some work with Aid to Artisans, and I do branding for artisan groups. So I love to hear, you know, what others are up to. Thanks.
Wonderful. Nice to see you again. Thanks for coming. Anshu, did you bring a thing today?
Yes, I did. Hi. Okay. So I've been working, I mean, I'm a designer, and I have my own studio, but I also work quite closely with different artisan groups, and there's one that how shall I say it? So essentially, there's one that has now gotten. I mean, we set up like a 3-4 month residency, and 10 women have come up with a really stunning body of work, and this is their first attempt at making expressive embroidery artistic textiles. And we are now in the stage where we're going to start, curating it and putting it together. And I was just, looking for, I don't know, like it would be nice to take their work out there. And we've got a few offers, but just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Anshu. Nice to see you. And
Yeah.
I'm going to put in the chat the link to when Anshu was our guest in La Hora so that you all can click on that and watch it later to see her beautiful work in collaborations with artisans. Anjali, did you bring a particular thing?
I can share the screen, the work I am doing.
Yeah, don't share it just yet. Right now we're just doing a round. It's like a roll call. So you brought something that you want to share with us?
It's on my website, basically.
Okay. So maybe we'll go back to you later and you can share your screen. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. Camila, do you have a particular thing that brought you here today?
Hi, no, I just wanted to listen. That's
Okay.
all.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Listeners are always welcome. Cynthia, do you have a thing that brought you here today?
No, I'm just here to listen and learn.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. Great. Wow. Wonderful guests here in Laura today. So thank you all so much for being here. I say we start with where we started with our sharing. So with Jackie. Jackie has been developing a training program to coach designers in creating handwoven fabric. And you've been working directly with weavers in Bangladesh, and you want to share an update. So I'll turn it over to you, Jackie.
Great. Thank you so much, Cynthia. And yeah, how wonderful. I can't wait to hear what all this other stuff is that's going on. Really exciting time together. Yeah, it was a few months ago that I had referenced my work in Bangladesh has been over the last 30 years with artisans of different kinds, but primarily now with weavers. That's my own background. I had brought fabrics to the US to just begin inspiring designers to work with handwovens, but found that it was quite a challenge at trade fairs when you've got that much time to catch somebody's attention, catch their engagement. And they were loving the fabrics. Designers really appreciated them, but they were just one of the thousands of other fabrics that are available. And we all know here the incredible sustainability credentials, you could say, that handwovens have. So the only way I could really think through how to make this a much more engaged offering for designers was to run this training, because then that would give me the space to actually communicate all that happens when handcraft communities are engaged in production. And so that's what I was playing with last year. Ran a pilot that went quite well, and that was the point at which I'd shared with the group here and got some really helpful feedback, which I incorporated into the beta run going forward. I decided to do a 1-year beta run because I needed to find what's the rhythm of the designers, what's the rhythm of the weavers, and how to really make those gel well together. So on the 16th of April, I'll be starting the 3rd of the 4 beta runs, and things have been tweaked along the way, and it's coming together well. So what happens is within the 5 classes, the designers get to know about the recycled yarns that we use. So they actually get sent a palette of yarns, because the yarns are recycled from garment factory scraps. And so it means that not only are they zero waste, there's zero new dyeing involved in them. Because obviously, you know, orange brown fabric becomes orange brown yarn. So it's zero waste, zero new dyes, saving all kinds of water and toxicity, and of course zero carbon, because they're all hand woven. And so the designers now get to understand the importance of the raw materials in their work, the importance of being fair trade produced and all the ethical elements involved there, and the transparency of production, because, you know, these are weavers that I've worked with for many years, and so we have the arrangement where they can take photographs and videos of the fabrics actually in production, which the designers can then use amongst their communities in their social shares and things like that, which has been going well. And yeah, the production time is working out well. When designers know that when this production is going to land, that's how they actually stream their designing. So, you know, like this April cohort, their fabrics will land in September. And so they know in April whether they're designing for, depending on their cycle, autumn, winter, spring, summer, whatever it is. So they know when it's going to land. So yeah, I just wanted to update and just also receive any feedback and questions, because you guys all have such interesting angles on what goes on in the artisanal world, that I'd be open to any kind of questions going forward as well.
Wow, thank you for that update. And I'm so glad this space has been useful to you and the work that you're doing. So thank you so much for coming back to share. I have a question, and open it up for any other questions or comments by the chat, or you can raise your hand. What are you finding that the artisans are learning through this process? Because your curriculum, let's say your training program, coaches designers, and is there an opportunity there for the artisans who are creating the fabric to also be learning, and how is that feedback loop created?
Yeah, the feedback element, what I'm really enjoying, and I actually just in my time in Bangladesh, I was able to do this in person, was to have the weavers actually be able to see who it is that they're weaving for and what is actually being made from their fabrics. And that conversation that we had together was so important in, you know, they're not just cracking out fabrics for an order that's going to go to stock somewhere and they don't know anything else about what's happening. They can see that the designers absolutely respect them as fellow professionals and are able to know that that is a link. It's a, for want of a better word at the moment, a partnership that is bringing it forward, that's benefiting them as weavers, but is also benefiting, bringing all of their fabrics into the market and benefiting the designers, obviously, in their businesses so that they can move the orders forward. So that was very important, because I did find, you know, over the years, I have found that what I would call lazy weaving was taking place very often when there was this disconnect between what fabrics were actually being used for. And so, you know, there were a number of times that we had to sit down and have some very hard conversations about what is happening with quality. But having this connection and knowing that the designers are working with me, obviously, primarily, but they know that I'm connected working with the weavers to be able to generate the best fabric that they need. Yeah, so the weavers have recognized their importance as professionals more now in this process. Yeah.
That's really interesting, this professionalization of a creative practice. And I, you know, Jim and Tatiana and perhaps there are others are sitting in your studio spaces. And would we ever qualify our work as lazy if we're working on a creative practice? And, you know, I know this has been part of Judy's work, is really giving back agency to artisans. And so one of the, I'll drop in the chat, our most recent article that we've published here in the lab focuses on critiquing the design process that we use. And this, Gabriela, this will be interesting to you, interested in strategy. The process that we typically use to work with artisans as designers or strategists has been through our, let's say, capitalist Western frameworks. And how could we encourage new ways of working together that centers their creativity and centers. But quality is an really interesting question. I've been interested in how aesthetics can be classist. Is quality also an external framework that is simply imposed? And how does quality get understood culturally? We could have a whole other session talking about that. But yeah, I'm intrigued by that framing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in terms of posing that as a question, it's when you know, in conversation with weavers, they know when, you know, if you can break one end or two ends in a warp and carry on weaving, but if you're going to break 5 ends before you actually go to the back of the loom and start repairing them, then yeah, you're going to end up with poor quality fabric no matter who's looking at it.
Exactly.
So, you know, there's things like that just have to be addressed, and there's a much more full framework in which to address that when people can see why it's important that this person gets this kind of fabric, and if she's not going to get this kind of fabric, is she going to give you another order? You know,
right. Yeah, that whole structural piece. So Judy, you wanted to jump in with a comment, or I saw your hand.
Yeah, I think your approach is really interesting, because when you teach designers what is involved in the craft, they understand it better and they're more respectful. But also, I think about quality. In my work with artisans in India, looking back traditionally, the client and the artisan had a hereditary relationship in which they shared the same criteria. So there was never any incentive not to do the best work, because you knew that your client understood it and would appreciate even small innovations, and they appreciated good quality. So there was never any incentive to do anything but the best. So I think bringing that personal connection is really important.
That's a really helpful insight. Thank you very much. I'd be interested to hear also from Pavitra if she has, but I see somebody else has got their hand as well. Yeah.
Tatiana.
Sorry, I can't figure out on my phone how to raise my hand. I would love that whole discussion that you're thinking about, Cynthia. I think that would be really interesting. I've been thinking a lot about this and actually talking about it in therapy because of my level of anxiety, you know, and how I nobody set up the standards that I set up to myself in terms of like perfection or level of quality. And we've been trying to undo where does that quality level it's set up from. And you're asking if as a creative, if you put that like, and it's interesting because I think that there's many artists that I respect their practice, but when I see their work, I'm like, ooh, they could have done this better. And then I go in immediately in that mode. So when I'm creating the work, and I worked as a graphic designer, creative director, and art director for 14 years of my professional life, and then I shifted into visual arts. And I don't know if that insanity would have been the same if I wouldn't have gone through this process of being a graphic designer and having to present work to client and having to be involved in an industry that is catered to that you're always catering to somebody else, and that somebody else has to approve, and there's somebody that is coming and telling you if what you're doing is good or bad, but it's also mainly cater to like sell things to the masses, right? And how different it is when you're creating work that is questioning the world that you're living in, or just bringing up conversations, and how much flexibility you can give yourself. And when you're experimenting, and that you don't have to, or at least I mean, and when I say you, I don't have to be in that level of perfectionist, or what happens there. And it's very interesting because throughout this process, this week, I was introduced to a woman that her name is Rita Segato, who's an Argentinian anthropologist and thinker. And she talks about, she's a feminist, but she talks about these ideas of production, perfectionism, work ethics, where are they coming from? And I bring this up because this is a conversation around mainly South America, and how there is a very different ways of approaching, of living in South America and approaching things. And I think that it's interesting when I think about artisans, or this dynamics of class and production, or what it is, it has an impact when people are seeing this in a class system, and where those systems are coming from. So I think that that's very interesting. And I do think that it's like hearing, Jackie, what you were saying about the fabric, when a piece of fabric is good and that needs to be good and has a good quality. It's interesting because I think that as an artist, many artists just kind of let go that. And I question when they let go that, and what part they are being like lazy, as difference of when I think of the artisan that has that love for their craft, I think that there's a very different like pride to it, and I wonder many times where conceptual art becomes like it becomes a separates those things. I was also curious because I went to India many years ago, and one thing that think in me when we went to do like some of those tours that are done, there was a particular one that it was around silk and the fabrics or the carpets. And there's also a very important tradition of like learning a certain type of weaving that is related with your family or where you come from. And it's like this idea of passing ancestral knowledge and tradition and learning very specific techniques more based on this idea of transferring of knowledge and conservation of that knowledge. And I wonder if that also plays a role and an influence in terms of the attention to detail and quality of what happens in that particular case. And I remember that there's the books of like the different types of carpets, like the symbology of the weaves that were being made, and I just kind of question if that idea of transferring of knowledge or passing it on, it also has an influence in terms of quality.
Mm. Thank you, Tatiana. Let's go to Susan. You have your hand raised. And make sure to look at the link that Jim put. I put the GIF link in the chat. Certainly an article that called "Is Quality an Idea Whose Time Has Gone?" Susan?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like from my perspective, the answer around quality, it's such a big thing. And having worked with artisans in a lot of different places, over the years, I've had different like learning experiences from it. And one thing that really helped me was doing true time studies to understand how long a piece actually takes. Because when someone's not rushed and when someone is, knows that you care about their quality of life and the right environment for them to be able to produce, I found that the quality went up. I think there's a lot of pressure on designers that are trying to sell into, a Western market, especially I was in the luxury sector, so there wasn't a lot of leeway for a lot of variants. I mean, you could talk about it in the marketing. And then the other thing is just like a quick lesson learned. I remember doing woven hats in Ecuador with a women's cooperative, and I had cases made for the hats before the hats were done. And this women's cooperative, every woman, even though we had a pattern, had like an inch or two difference in size. And I ended up not being able to deliver that order. And I learned from that really getting to know the group you're working with, and I think there's different levels of artisans, of technique, like just in life. We have better designers, we have more entry level. So like really understanding and getting to know the group is so helpful, because when it comes down to it, there are certain standards that if something doesn't live up to it, you can't sell it. And so the goal is for everyone to be successful in the end. So anyway, that was the bane of I loved sampling, and then QA on production was always just like, okay, how do we do this? And, on time at a certain level. So yeah, I hear that question.
Thank you, Susan, so much for sharing. This was a great round. Thank you, Jackie, for kicking it off. Hope that was useful to you. And Gabriella, let's go to you. So you had said that what brought you today is that you're really exploring how strategy and fair trade can be incorporated together. And your question in the chat is much more specific. What strategies have you found to be most effective in communicating the stories behind fair trade products to consumers and fostering a deeper connection with ethical values? Well, I put in the chat a link to when in Laura we focused on the conversation about fair trade. It was with Daphne Lewenstein, who's an alumna of the New School and worked with me in the lab and in one of our fieldwork programs, and has done her own work in the artisan sector as well as with fair trade. So definitely listen to that. It's a good summary of the downside to certification programs like fair trade. But generally, the notion of fairness, I would say, is core to what we're interested in the lab. And what we have found is that a designer or a strategist will their ability to stay true to what you're describing as ethical values really depends on what brought them to an artisan community in the first place, or what brought them to a sector. So are they the person in charge of sourcing materials for sale in a market that will have those expectations of quality that we were just discussing, of timeline that we were just discussing, of homogeneity, right? Of Susan saying that the difference between one design and another can vary so much. So is there that level of predictability needed that then requires that the designer enforce a kind of framework that may not necessarily be the way that artisans have been working? So that certainly comes to mind. In terms of storytelling, one of the things that preoccupies us as a lab is the use of poverty porn in marketing. So again, looking at the critical side, concerned about exploitative images or images used without the knowledge of the community. So I was recently made aware of an artisan travel tour. I happen to have a connection with an Indigenous liaison with that community, and they were able to confirm the community had no idea that this tour was being organized, but their images were being used to market the tour, which was charging thousands of dollars for people to come and learn from this community that did not know that people were going to be arriving. So there's that. There's the, for you, Gabriela, really thinking about who holds the power of being able to make images and who tends to be depicted in images, often with the idea that we're sharing stories that then will perhaps bring greater income to the community. I think there are many examples of really great brands, and we can drop links into the chat. But it'll be important as you pursue your project is how might we also flip the camera? So make sure that your research includes looking at participatory photography projects of how the act of taking photos and documenting is in many ways carrying power. And in that, I've not seen a great example of artisans really being the ones telling their own stories through cameras that also result in high quality images. So it goes back to quality. So I have myself participated in projects where the artisans were documenting, taking photographs, video recording, but the camera work often does not end up with the quality we assume potential buyers of fair trade products are looking for, and certainly would welcome if others have examples of that. And the last thing I'll say is in our most recent article that I also shared in the chat, we have a section on marketing, and there's this one image there that one of my co-authors, Valentina Frias, produced in collaboration with a group of artisans in Colombia, where she facilitated a set design workshop. Let's use the natural materials we have access to here to create a set in which we're then going to document the work. And that, I think, is a really interesting model as well, to think about how it's not just the people's work being documented or their community being photographed, their image being used to sell products, but in fact, having them create a context within which the work or their practices are going to be photographed. Any other, anybody else want to share in response to Gabriela's question? Anshu?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I'm not sure if this is more in response to your question, but I mean, Cynthia, when you were talking about photography, it kind of reminded me of all the internal trauma that I might have gone through, because I was working on a design project for a person who's setting up a brand based in Orissa, and it's really well intended. And of course, it's also an attempt to do very high-end clothing with artisanal expertise. And when we look at Orissa, there is one whole section which is tribal, and whatever they make is primarily for themselves, and there'll be one typology per tribe. So it's a long process to see whether they would like to make what they make for other people, whether they're happy with their, And a lot of them live in extreme poverty and they end up going as construction workers to different places. And it's not a good situation. And maybe it doesn't strike them that they can actually get some sort of a stable income wherever they live, doing what they do, if only there was enough cultural appreciation for what they do outside of their space. But in order to build that cultural appreciation, you need to carry their stories out. And, so we travel there, we spend time with them. They love being photographed. I don't think they understand what that actually means and where these pictures can end up being. And so far, there's been a lot of good response, and the person who I was working for is quite happy with it. And slowly, expertise is being built at the back end so that everybody can grow together. But these are very tricky things to sort of be very clear about. And in the end, I made peace with myself, thinking that I will go with the best intention that I can and be as mindful as I can. And I don't know if that's enough.
Yeah, I don't know if it's enough, unless we're in constant dialogue with the people with whom we're doing that work. We won't know it's enough, but at least taking those steps to be really mindful of it is a very important first step. And, I encourage students going into the space. Gabriela messaged me, she had to head to class. But as she starts on her journey, just, being reminded of the potential downsides, the potential harm. What I put in the chat, the reminder that impact is more important than intentions, is a really important starting point. Jackie?
Thank you. Yes, on the photography element, it's, like you said, an actual issue about the quality. And what I'm doing with the weavers and the master weavers and the people that are taking photographs in the actual workshops, they're basically just taking with their phone. And I've given them like short courses, just a little brief demonstrations of how they can use the camera in different ways to get different angles and things like that. But yeah, it's never going to be SLR, DSLR type standard work. But that is part of, as I share those images with the designers to be able to track the production of their fabrics, there's more integrity in that. There's something of that in a sense is the handmade. It's part of the weavers documenting their own process. And yes, that's not going to be studio quality, but it carries its own sense of integrity about it. That if the designers are prepared to weave that into their brand, then that can be presented. But it's a very nuanced element of the whole process, that's for sure. But yeah, I just wanted to share that little bit of what I've had here. I've also put in the chat somebody who she does use all the videos and things that I send. So yeah, just you can check her out as well, see how it goes. Thanks.
Great. Pavitra, you wanted to add?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is when you talk of integrity, I think that is the core of it. So I think anything done, any work done with integrity, saying if you are winning and I too have to win. I mean, that is my principle. We've always had it. So if I have to grow, you have to grow. And if it's with that sense of integrity, I think there is no way that something can't be succeeded. I mean, in terms of textiles, I've seen with weave, with any design, it's always worked. because I think the intent is very important, and how transparent you are with them and why you do it. It's, I think the why of it is very important. And I think the sensitivity that you work at their level, instead of just telling them this is the design I want this XYZ design. I think it's necessary for allowing them to have their creative input also. So it should become a collaboration. It's not just a one-sided thing where I give my design and say, you do it. Once there is collaboration, you build pride and confidence. And pride and confidence puts that, besides first you put money on the plate, food on the plate, and then when that confidence comes, they can go greater heights. I mean, in all my experience, this is something that has worked, and it's the third generation I'm training right now.
Hmm.
I mean, without my brand, without my name, totally in it.
Hmm. Thank you, Pavitra. Anjali?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was previously also involved in it, and I had approximately 200 ladies working for me. And this time when I started working with them, so my motto was to teach them also, like, you know, women upliftment was my motto. So what I decided was the new girls, which because still in our country, people are not ready to accept, there's a lot of male dominance. Okay, so ladies still are, they work at home also, they work in the outside also, but they're not given the same kind of respect. So what I wanted to do was give them the power to earn, and I wanted to give them education through this. So, and create side by side, create jobs for them. And they can't go very far off from their places. So what I used to do, what I'm doing right now is creating small units in their area only. I'm renting out a room or something where I can place like 10 girls or 15 girls or 20 girls in their area where it is easily accessible to them. And I have, say, about 10 girls who know the art, like who know the work very nicely, who are teaching the new girls, and then they are teaching that art to them, and then they are kind of when they are becoming good, uh, and then I can employ them as full-time they're like internship, and then giving them a full-time job kind of a thing, basically. So I'm creating jobs for them also, basically, side by side. So and fair trade, whatever money in this, the UP government, like in India, UP government is really coming up with the upliftment of women, and they are also trying to help this cause. So I plan to ask them for help, and give my project a go ahead. Can I share something with you?
Well, we only have 2 minutes left, so I'm a little bit worried about time. I wonder
I'll
if we
just
could do that at a future one.
Oh, I just want to share for a second if you could possibly.
You could share for a second, sure. You can share for a minute.
Yeah,
Does that
okay.
sound good?
Can you share,
should be
see
able-
it?
No, we can't see it yet.
Okay. So these are the values. Women upliftment and job creation is one of my values. And our craft, this is the work we are doing. And this is the place, this is the kind of work and the artisans which do it.
Well, Anjali, I would love to learn more. If I may, can I email you?
Yeah, sure.
Would love to learn more. Our particular interest in the Deed Lab is around fair wages and empowerment. So the notion of uplifting is really exciting to me, and I would love to dig a little bit deeper with you and see if perhaps you could present more fully at a future one of these
Yeah, I can
gatherings.
even connect with the artisans also. I
Okay,
can have a
fantastic.
full print. Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for coming. Jim, I'm going to take you up on the offer of hosting some little ones in your studio.
Anytime.
Okay. Great to see you all. Have a wonderful month and see you at a future La Hora.